All right. Well, good evening, everybody. It is November 8th, and we are here yet again. We came back. We're still around. This week, we are actually going to be talking about the Eliksni. Last week, we finished up Books of Sorrow, and we actually just finished voting, and our next week topic is going to be Vault of Glass. So I know that there's a number of people in the chat right now that are pretty excited about that. But but before we go any further, let's introduce. You'll notice people in the stream will notice we actually have an additional face on here. We are actually joined by Damoel, the infamous drag defender.
Drag apologist.
So there he is, and then this is Blue again, and then Justin is here as well as Willy. So
Willy.
Yeah, then there's Willy. Willy.
Oh yeah,
there he is.
I partially heard my name.
So yet again, just for everyone who's just jumping in, our normal schedules are Wednesdays at 10, but yet again we're having a little bit of an odd week simply because this weekend is the Gift of Gaming event with the Dads of Destiny. We're streaming at the same time, so we will be back tomorrow at 10, but we're going to actually be over on the Dads of Destiny channel. We haven't quite figured out what we're going to be doing, but that's where we're going to be tomorrow. And then also Saturday morning, really early in the morning, I think it's about 1 a.m. Central, we will be having a 3-hour window at that point as well. So next week, hopefully, we'll be back on our normal Wednesdays at 10 p.m. schedule. And just a quick reminder, as usual, every Friday for the chat, every Friday we open up polls to vote our next topic. Like I said, this week, or this coming week, currently it just started today, Vault of Glass is the topic. Friday we'll run through the next route. And then the Focus Fire chat just runs Tuesday to Tuesday. And yeah, so this week we were talking about the Eliksni. And we can just go ahead and get started. Dudes, Justin, do you want to take us off on what do we know, you and Daniel?
Actually, do we want to kind of touch on what we did last week, or we good?
We did the Books of Sorrow.
I think we did.
A lot.
Yeah.
And the week before that.
And the week before that. Actually, to be fair, it was the week before was the Books of Sorrow. The day before that was the Books of Sorrow. And then 2 weeks before that was the Books of Sorrow. So...
Yeah, no. I think you're correct.
We still didn't touch on everything when I look back at it,
Shut up, you.
Oh, my God. We're going to be retouching.
Apologists?
Yeah, we're going to be touching. We're going to come back and touch on stuff so many times, probably. But so,
no, I think what we know, the Eliksni is kind of the precursor name for the Fallen. The Fallen was actually, by everything I can find, the Fallen is sort of a derogatory term that was kind of by the Awoken to refer to the Eliksni. And when they existed,
Varix calls them Fallen.
Yeah,
but his doing that as an acceptance,
right? Yeah,
it's already been a name.
I think there's one card where he mentions the Awoken. And I can't remember who's speaking in it, but he's like, they call us Fallen, they call us this, they call us, and but either way, Fallen is the adopted term for them. Their actual name is the Eliksni, which is the exact same race that we shoot in the head all day long on Earth, on Venus, and sometimes on Mars.
Well, some of us do.
Yeah, some of us do. Some of us don't. We do outreach. Some of us do, but
Yep. in the clinic, 30 hours a week.
But yeah, Damo, why don't you give us a little broad overview of the Eliksni?
Well, I'm particularly drawn to them because they seem the one race, the one enemy that we have in Destiny that seems ripe for redemption. I don't really see them in the same way as the others, which are like willful conquerors and aggressors. It's more like they were driven to this, and they're not particularly pleased with it themselves. I think a lot of them have forgotten kind of that they were once better than they are, but
Well,
some of them haven't.
Do you want to run through a basic timeline of where or how they got to become, how the Eliksni became the Fallen?
Well, yeah, that's a good start.
Okay.
The current, I mean, from what we can tell, they were a traveler-born race, or traveler-raised race, and the whirlwind occurs, which is some event that tore their society apart and killed one of their more powerful leaders. There's some supposition that's Oryx and his Taken. At this point, they seem to descend into some sort of piracy because they rely on a substance called ether that they got from the traveler who had abandoned them. And they move on to conquer human settlements and despoil them, and then eventually progress to Earth, where they attempt to retake their traveler.
Correct. And then, so, you know, the basic timeline that we are, and yeah, I agree. There's a few details actually that kind of, I think, stand out too, is that right after, soon after what they call the whirlwind, and also note, they call the traveler, whenever you see Eliksni text, they call it the Great Machine. You'll notice that prime servitors and actually all the servitors they look like a traveler, a mini traveler.
Yeah.
A lot of people, there's a very strong theory that that's by design.
I think 100%.
I think it's, yeah, I personally think it's 100%, but we don't have anywhere in text that says, yes, this was so. But it was shortly after the whirlwind came and destroyed their civilization that actually we know that there was a giant civil war that broke out amongst the newly termed Fallen. And we're not really sure how long that civil war occurred. We do know that at least two of the houses that we know about were actually eradicated during that. That was I believe it was House Scar and House Rain were the ones that were believed to be completely destroyed. And there's a couple interesting points about that, but we'll get into that in just a minute. But then they actually achieved a pretty tenuous peace, and it was also during that point that the current hierarchy of the houses was established. Because up until that point, before the whirlwind came, we know that the ether, there's a number of grimoire cards that refer to the ether as flowing freely. They didn't have to create the ether. And so they didn't need the structure that allows the prime servitor to become such a prominent godlike figure in their culture, because they didn't need a production basis for it. It just was there. So it was during that civil war that kind of, I think I get the feeling that during the civil war and during that peace process, maybe even as a part of that peace process, the current hierarchy where you have a Kel, an Archon, and a prime servitor, which we'll get into that a little bit later, but I think that's the hierarchy that kind of came about as part of that. And then after that, after achieving the peace, kind of part of that achievement of peace was the realization that they kind of came to as a species that said, you know what, we need to go get this great machine back. And it kind of gave them a unified goal to work towards. So they did. They loaded up their ketches. They got their skiffs. Which are the ketches are the giant ships. The most famous one is the one that we know of from I believe it's the House Winter.
Mm-hmm. Which we just leave lying there.
Yeah, which there's so much wrong with that. But so that's a ketch. It's a giant ship, and then there's skiffs, which are the smaller ships that you often see during those public events, which is the extraction cruise. Those are skiffs. So they get in their ketches, and each Kel has a ketch, and then that's where the house is that's where the house is housed. And they leave their solar system. Now there's a lot of theory right now whether or not we've encountered the entirety of the Fallens, if there weren't any left behind. We know that not all of them follow a house. Tanix doesn't. There's references of numbers. The House Exiles don't follow a Kel, but there's a number of barons and a number of captains that are supposedly just kind of freelance members of their society. So they don't all follow houses, and given the kind of the loose nature of their society, it's not entirely with there's not a lot of doubt in my mind that some of them, during the journey were like, you know what, we're good. We found a planet that's kind of habitable. We're just gonna stay here. But so they arrive in our solar system. Now, ironically, they arrive in our solar system pretty shortly after our own, what we call the collapse. And pretty much they find the traveler, on Earth, and they basically don't really hesitate. They kind of dive right into an attack upon the last city. This is actually the House of Devils is on the surface the leader. It turns out that actually it's the House of Kings kind of playing each other off. But they launch into a pretty successful war against the city until Battle of Six Fronts, which is the infamous battle where a number of Guardians became rather famous. You have the Iron Lords, you have Saint 14, you have our favorite person, Osiris. And Six Fronts is a victory for the city, and it kind of puts it seems like it puts the Fallen back on their heels. Then that follows up with Twilight Gap, and that kind of breaks the team. Yeah,
where the Awoken Queen sort of throws them on their heels.
Yeah, so and there's a number of there's a number of theories also. The House of Wolves was actually supposed to be at Six Fronts. Well, the Queen intervened, and as we know from the House of Wolves DLC, she eradicated the Kell and kind of used the infighting to basically bring them to heel and took them as her own. Well, so that prevented them from actually even landing. They never even got to Earth, in the sense that they never got when they were still the unified House of Wolves, because she, for whatever reason, she stepped in and stopped them.
And you can actually read that whole thing. There's a series called The Migrator, which is supposed to be chapters of the book that, show Marisov when she uses the Harbingers against them. When Petra went ahead and disobeyed orders maybe a little bit. Yeah. Got some people killed, but got the job done.
There's a couple interesting theories on that, too.
Well, and we actually do know what her motivation was. Her motivation was to save Earth.
Right, and she also...
Why, but we don't know. But
and I think the other thing was, I think the understanding was that the Guardians were going to either back away or, they can regenerate themselves. That didn't work out so well. But, so after Six Fronts, then there's Twilight Gaps, which destroys the Alliance. Like, that basically just kind of confirms to the other houses that, yeah, we're better off just kind of doing our own approach. Like, we have our own way to do this, and we kind of were listening to you because the kings were kind of maneuvering us, and the devils were really powerful, and you got your head caved in, so you're not very powerful anymore. So, yeah, your Kel's dead. But, and that kind of brings us to, well, it doesn't bring us to the current point in game, but it brings us to the start of Destiny, which is where our Guardian is kind of reborn. And then, of course, most of us have played the storyline of Destiny. We can get into that, a little bit later. But that's the basic background that I was able to piece together.
It should also be noted that a lot of their actions are rooted in almost incoherent rage, as we can tell from the cards. Skolas's point of view cards are the best example of this, where he's just the cusp of rational, but obviously so far gone that he can't really see it.
Yeah, it's hard to tell if he's delusional or prophetic.
Yeah. Well, his Kellikel stuff, I think, is desperation. I'm more talking that card where the 9 release him, and he's ranting about...
Yeah, he's not happy.
He's ranting about the rage and how mistreated his people are. And I think that the funny thing is that they're so angry they didn't even think about asking to see if they could share the Traveler. I don't think that was even a...
No, I don't think it even entered into their... They just, they... And I think part of it is they might... Well, and we know from, the recent raid thing, the Kell of Stone, where's the Great Machine? Where's the Great Machine? I think that there's also maybe a level of perception of they were abandoned. And so they might not want to they might not want necessarily the traveler back to lead them. They might want revenge a little bit.
I think it's less that. I think that the analogy that Bungie is going for there is really the descent into a dark age where you can't even see a savior if they walk by. Right there.
And that's what I get too, They, even though the traveler abandoned them, they still consider it the great machine.
Yeah.
And we don't know exactly what this either is. It could be even made out of light. Doubtful. I think they might even say that something in the grimoire that proves me wrong there, but I think but their mindset is this is their great machine. See, I feel like we're not, kind of like the way that Ivurath felt about the dragons and the Books of Sorrow.
I was actually just about to say that.
And her gods. We should not have to share this. These are ours. So maybe they want to lock the traveler up to make sure he doesn't go anywhere again. But,
but...
There's no proof it's Alpha Lupi. That's another time. But let's move on here.
I was just copying.
And as a person, Drake lives matter.
So one theory that I discussed with somebody on Reddit is that the ether may very well be light, and it may very well be the effect of long-term traveler alliance, right? Because there's a lot of signs that Earth didn't have the traveler for that long before whatever it is caught us. Because there's a card, one of my favorites in particular, where it discusses how technology had advanced at kind of weird rates, which to me speaks that we didn't have it long enough for things to stabilize, right? It just handed us a bunch of technology and things went kind of nuts. So perhaps the Eliksni had it for long enough that their biology actually adapted to light, and that's what ether is.
Yeah.
Right.
Could very well be. And at the same time, when you pop their heads off, that glorious sight there, it is very bright.
Yeah.
Like light. Or glimmer, which I can't remember what the exact breakdown of glimmer is supposed to be, but I know it's traveler related.
It's programmable matter.
Yeah, glimmer is programmable matter.
It's like nanotech's nanotech.
Yeah, that they were eating light this whole time, and now they have these servitors that make them kind of like, instead of having a steak, they have like a soybean, big shaped, not good thing.
That's actually why they're angry.
I think it's
they just want their meat, but they're stuck with soybeans. I'd want to kill people too. Give me my steak back. That's my cow.
They've been forced to become vegans.
No,
but a better analogy is they're like cats that have been forced to become vegans.
Yeah, actually, their catnip has been taken away.
Yeah, ether was actually long considered to be the fifth element. There was scientific theory for a long time thinking that ether permeated all matter. That it was the base of everything. Now that was largely proven.
That was one of the reasons why we thought it might be light, because light is a good analogy for that fifth element.
Right. And also there's tons of into the ether claims,
Yep.
and stuff like that. So, but yeah, that's actually a really good point.
Actually, but the one thing that ether equals light always gives me a problem with, you've got the servitors who are actually controlling the flow of ether to the different classes of fallen. How do they still have it if it's light?
Well,
and the travelers left them.
And we know that we know that they create ether from base materials that are ceremoniously given to the servitors through an unknown process. So we know that they actually create it. And that's why actually I'm kind of thinking that maybe it is kind of similar to Glimmer, because we know that Glimmer is somewhat created too, but we know it's not created. Or is Glimmer created, or was Glimmer?
There's a lot of
discovered. I can't remember off the top of my head on that one.
Glimmer.
Me neither, and I have.
Well, Glimmer exists on Earth, so we can surmise that it's not natural.
Is it? It's not natural? Okay.
Because, I mean, it doesn't exist on our Earth, so...
Oh, yeah. No, I got you. I'm following that, yeah. But is it a, I guess, in this realm, is it a natural compound?
All right, let's see. This is what it says about glimmer. It's a programmable matter called glimmer, serves as one of the city's basic currencies. With the right inputs and an energy source, glimmer can be transmuted into nearly anything. Makes it's precious to the city's industries and artisans. That value, in turn, makes glimmer a useful means of exchange, especially for those who venture beyond the city's walls. Says it passes through an economic lifestyle. It comes from reclaimed Golden Age stashes and technology.
Okay.
Whether a tiny mechanism or an underground lode seeded by ancient machines.
So my assessment of it is that it's not at all naturally reoccurring. It was created.
Right. No, I think
it is really
remember off the top of my head if that was
nanotech.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how I've always I mean, and we know that it's nano. I mean, that's one of the basic explanations of how you carry so many guns on you, actually, is nanotechnology. Because that's...
I do want to point out, Bungie points out kindergartens complaining in this Glimmer card. I'm reading it now. It says, newborn guardians often complain that they should be issued high-quality gear for free. Are they not, after all, fighting for the future of the city?
Yeah.
We never complain. What are you talking about?
Well, we were vanilla Destiny, we were just like, ooh, look at this game.
Yeah. No, there's actually I'll leave the real world out for a little bit after this one, but there was a 19th century theory, and it included a matter called luminiferous ether, and that was before they understood how light acted as a wave and a particle. So they created, small minds. They just created this luminiferous ether, which was like a taxi cab that would kind of transmit the light through the empty space from where it was emitted to where it was reflected. And they equated all that to this luminiferous ether, which light-bearing, and it literally means light-bearing ether, which is pretty crazy.
So anyways, ether actually is important to everything when it comes to Fallen, and I just lost my note. Where'd it go?
Did I make you lose your note?
No, it's on the opposite side, and I can't read through the page.
I'm sure we will end up finding out what it is.
I'm actually not 100% sure that the servitors are complicit in the control of the Fallen. I'm not 100% sure that they're
the
actually...
The servitors or the prime servitor?
The servitors. Well, the servitors definitely, and possibly even the prime servitor.
They're the spigot from which the ether flows, are they not?
Well,
they are, but what I'm curious about is how much input they have on the dominance of the Fallen.
The Kells, because you have to understand. So the way the hierarchy, I guess we can talk about this. The hierarchy of the houses, right? At the very, very let's start at the bottom. At the bottom, you have dregs. The lowest of the low. There's a reason they're called they're called dregs for a reason. They're actually they all Fallen and all Eliksni have 4 arms. The dregs actually have their lower 2 arms docked in an extremely degrading ritual, and extremely painful, extremely humiliating, and basically they're cannon fodder. That is what they are. Now, if a dreg manages to survive, it is culturally allowed by their higher ups to regrow their arms. Now, we know that they can regrow their arms, whether it's natural or via ether, we don't know, but they are allowed to regrow their arms and they become a vandal. Now, a vandal is your skilled workers, your kind of your artisans. They're kind of like I want to say like a minor knight, I guess, in a militaristic sense, or a non-commanding officer. Like they're the middle tier. And then obviously you have different skill levels of vandals. Now a vandal ultimately wants to become and prove himself or herself or itself, whatever it is, to become what we call captains. And Damoel and I, we were talking about this a little bit before we jumped online. Captain's kind of a misnomer because they don't really captain anything, but they are in control of what's called a crew. And a crew is comprised of, and don't really have a hard number, but it's a grouping of vandals and dregs.
Well, especially since they're based on pirates, I assume there is no hard number. I assume it evolves.
Yeah, it's just kind of
based
whatever.
on stature. And
then I'm
such.
assuming that if a captain gets a big enough crew, they become, well, it's assumed that they would become a baron, which is, a baron is the exact same as a captain, with the difference that they actually captain a skiff. They command a skiff. So they're actually kind of captains. But I'm not going to get into the semantics of that. Above the barons is kind of what I've started calling the triumvirate of the house. It's the Kell, the Archon, and the Prime Servitor. Now, it's interesting here because they all have to be there for the house to actually work because of the functions that they each pull. And it's really actually kind of like the Roman triumvirate. They all hate each other. Like, they do not like each other, which is actually the function of the Archon, is to make sure that the other two don't try to kill each other. And the Archon's also the chief engineer, and he fixes all the machines of the house. But his primary function is actually as mediator between the Kell and the Prime Servitor. And the important part of that is the Prime Servitor is responsible for pretty much one thing, and that's generating ether. Now, the Prime Servitor also has the capacity to, through some fashion, create what we call minor servitors, which are also capable of creating ether. And I don't remember, can a minor servitor become a Prime Servitor? Is it able to upgrade? I don't think
there's only one example of a Prime Servitor
already.
Back.
Because I mean, when you look at the servitor card, and it tells you that, and interestingly enough, they're living relics from the once mighty fallen civilization. So they're old machines from back when the Fallen were still the Eliksni.
Right.
They're packed with ultra sophisticated machinery. They process matter and energy into the ether, and the Fallen depend on it for their life.
And it's important to note that the minor servitors are all, I view them as pretty much mindless autonoma of the Prime Servitor. Like, they don't really, they're not independent. They follow the programming and functionality of the Prime Servitor. There's not really, and Shanks are the same. Shanks aren't in the hierarchy because Shanks are literally the pit bulls. Like, they are literal cannon fodder. They send them to scout, and they don't really care if it comes back because it's just a machine to them.
Yeah, but it's just transmitting data back.
But the interesting thing is then the Kell. So the Kell is often perceived as the major leader because, from the house's perspective, the Kell is the political leader. He's responsible for dealing with the other houses and also, to a degree, dealing with the internal, problems of his own house. But he also has on his presence what we call, it's called a cipher, and every Kell has their own cipher, which is what we kind of find out, which is also interesting because that's what Varix, through the Prison of Elders, is the Elder cipher. The important thing about the cipher is that is the spigot through which the ether flows. So what that translates into is the Prime Servitor really only creates ether. It doesn't really have any say in who gets the ether. No, that all goes to the Kell, which is why as you go up in the ranks, the Fallen get bigger. That's why, like, when you have the Venus strike with the Archon, that Archon is giant, is because as you achieve higher ranks, you get gifted more ether. It's kind of one of the things that we made a point in the chat. It's kind of like how the Hive work, except in the Hive, the light that they collect is collected by thralls and then passed up through tithing. Here, it's collected at the top and passed down through a perverted meritocracy, I guess. It's not really, I mean, it's kind of, it's up to the Kell who gets what, but it's known that the higher ranks get more ether, therefore they can grow bigger. And in
this case, it's probably like less tribute or anything like that, and probably more an attempt to keep the powerful.
Right, exactly. And Pins just put it up. You know, he asked, is it just the captains and above that can blink? And from what we've seen, yes. But if you understand that ether is equal to power, that would kind of make sense, because the captains would be probably kind of the minimum level. You know, thinking about it from a fourth outside the fourth wall, the captain would be the minimum level in which they could achieve that ability.
Yeah,
I'm beginning to think it's actually the Prime who decides how everything is distributed. I mean, sure,
no, it's definitely the Kell. They make a big deal.
They make a big deal that the Kell has a personal cipher that only he can distribute. So, like, the Prime, I mean, I could see the decision on who gets it maybe arbitrarily being between the three.
You look at it on the servitor card, it says all the servitors are attached to the Prime, and a massive servitor, well, the Prime is the massive servitor, and it has a unclear symbiosis with the Archon. Right. And then, I think this is where you're saying that the Archon kind of plays peacekeeper. Says the Archon conveys the Kell's wishes to the Prime, and he exerts some measure of control.
Because you also have to remember that the Prime Servitor is in the Fallen realm, not the... And there's an important distinction here. The Eliksni are not the Fallen. The Fallen were formerly Eliksni. And I think that's important because I don't think in the Eliksni society that this power structure would work, because they didn't have a limited supply, if that makes sense. But it
is definitely an exploitative system.
Right. And that's kind of my point, is like we've had multiple comments about the ether flew for, it was like the utopian idea, the milk and honey and all that. But it's the Prime Servitor is viewed as a god figure because it creates the mana that they survive on. It is literally a mana machine, and they can't survive without it. So the Prime Servitor derives power from the ability that, it kind of has the winning hand when it comes to, you don't like me, I'm just not going to create ether.
But there's a few things that are... So we know that they can survive without a Prime Servitor, because we killed devils, and they're still around.
Kind of.
And wolves haven't had one in a long time, which we find out during the story missions, when they resurrect theirs, and we kill it again. Well, we kill it, I guess.
Yeah.
So...
Well, but I don't think that... Then that's what I was saying, is I think the minor servitors, I think, are also able to create ether. I just don't think that they create it in such a... I think the Prime Servitor serves as a streamlining machine, so that the minor... I think the minor servitors are actually the creation process, or the creation machines, but the Prime Servitor synchronizes those machines together so that the most ether can be created, if that makes sense.
That might be true, but...
And so, like, the minor servitors could still create ether, they just can't create it in the same quantities as if they had a Prime to synchronize their creation process.
So
if that makes sense. That's how I kind of view it.
Well, and so one of the things that I was saying when we started this is that I'm not 100%... So we don't have any examples of servitor behavior, really.
Yeah.
They're the only part of the Fallen Society that we have not been able to observe. Because we only see one, and we kill it, but we don't really see what's going on, except that there's a bunch of Fallen lying down before it and praying. So it's entirely possible that the servitors behave in a manner that we don't understand, and they may or may not be as complicit in the darkness that the Eliksni have partaken in. That's
a fair point.
So if we equate...
Well, it comes out once again, it says servitors, when it says they have complex relationships with each other as well as their fallen crew, it makes me sound. It sounds like they don't even like anybody. It's just like,
well, that's kind of what I'm
here
saying. So, like, what if they're operating on the old paradigms that the traveler laid down, right? Mm-hmm. Which is going to be utopia and peace and happiness, right? That might explain why they need translators and stuff to get the ether out of them, because the servitors aren't going to be happy about the way the Fallen are living.
That could be why the Archon exists.
Yeah,
is to placate the servitors, to keep them in line, because I always viewed the Kel as kind of the brain. I mean, they're the first thing is they're the political leaders. Like they're the ones that are calling the shots, and so to me that always kind of translated into they're the ones that are kind of, if there's going to be a point of perversion of the society, I think it's going to stem from them.
Oh, for sure, and I think that's intentional, because I think they're supposed to be tyrannical figures, and I think that's what we're supposed to see, is that they're the problem.
And the other, and Willy, kind of to your point too, the other response I would make is remember the Archon is the master mechanic. Well, what is a servitor? It's a giant machine.
Right.
Well, and we don't even know 100% that they are proper mechanics, because there's a lot of subtext that the Eliksni may not even know how their machines work anymore.
Well, I would say that the Archons are going to probably be the closest to a mechanic as an Eliksni can.
Right,
probably
but
do.
what I'm aiming for here is, I don't know if you're familiar with Warhammer, but it's sort of like, I sort of see them as like tech priests, where it's almost...
Oh, yeah, okay.
Right, they're almost following a set of paradigms more than anything else.
I actually, I view the Archon as almost like the shaman. You may have the king or the military leader who has control over his charges and everything, but if the person who is the conduit to the deity says that there will be no war on this day, he's the choke point to their. It's not, they worship it almost like a deity, but it's not their one true deity.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that's where the Archon fits in for me. He's like the mystic. He can speak to the servitor. He's almost like our speaker.
Yes, and I agree. But what I'm trying to say is that the thing he's speaking to may not even exist, so to speak.
True.
Like they may be interpreting signals from the machines as deity responses, but in fact, the machine's just kicking out, kicking out data.
Right, yeah, because they're known as high priests, the Archons. You'll notice all the Archons are supposed to be the priests. And you look at the Rixus Devil Archon card, and it tries to describe Archons for the most part. Tells you that you don't know if they are the caretakers, like Blue saying, of the primes, or if they are pretty much a puppet, like somebody that we know may be a puppet for the Traveler. And Rixus, for example, he collects skulls of dead guardians, and he gives them to whichever prime he serves. So,
Even if it doesn't give a crap.
Yeah, for all he's like, maybe these skulls are making it happy, and maybe the prime's just looking at him like, well, I guess this ether's making you happy. So
I asked for apples. Why are you giving me heads?
So
I just wanted some WD-40. Stop killing people.
If
not.
If ether is their light, are the servitors just their workaround for losing the Traveler? Because
that's the way I see it.
They can't just be that, because they existed before.
I think it's way more complex though, because just look at the biology, right? Ether is their air. Like they cannot survive with it. And we know, just look at what happened with our own, the humans when the Traveler came. We were already in existence. Like we were already dependent on oxygen. The way I kind of view it is, it's kind of like, I think Willy, was it you that said it's like the Geth, or no, was that something else? I don't know.
When I was referring to the
I don't
To
know
the
Mass
Vex
Effect.
being like
Yeah,
the Geth
okay.
and the fact that they're all one mind. We'll get into that next
Okay.
week. Trust me.
Yeah. So I actually view them as kind of Halo, the grunts. You know, they have the methane
Yes.
mask. That's and it calls to point with the Fallen. They all wear masks. Like, I view the ether as kind of the not just air. It's also kind of a steroid thing, obviously, because that's what depends on what the. Well, no, it could be oxygen too.
I mean, you deprive somebody of oxygen,
They're
going
gonna
to
die.
strong.
And they're going to get smaller.
Yeah, but you don't give somebody enough. You give someone too much oxygen, they die as well. You know, they don't get huge.
And that's true. And
Well,
it's a
actually,
poor.
it's a form of doping.
Well, yeah. Just ask.
That's what the way I'm looking at it at this point
I
is
just don't think
is
that ether is light. I think it's literally air to them.
But what I was saying is it could be. The only way I can see it to be light, because I kind of agree, is if, like I said, they had lived with it for so long that it's part of their biology.
right.
Right. We don't have any example of that in humanity, and for all we know, it's a thing that the Traveler abandoned when it came to humanity, because,
No, that's
or
true.
it could, but so like the thing that makes me think it has something to do with the Traveler is how did they get by before the Traveler?
Well, but if they're in a world that produces ether naturally,
But then, I mean, but then why was that just a unique event? Why couldn't they find another?
I mean, we have for Jesus, look at any random planet in the entire universe, you're going to have a random atmosphere. I mean,
Well, sure,
if
but
it has
we
an
can
atmosphere.
barely see percent like any huge percent of it, and we already have some very Earth-like possibilities.
And that's true.
exactly.
I think it.
You
but
look
I think
at it.
No, go ahead.
Let's go back to the glimmer. You know, the glimmer is created essentially by, from what I'm reading, as far as glimmer goes, glimmer is starting to look a lot more like ether.
Mm-hmm.
It's from our golden age, and we use it to power things, not ourselves like the Eliksni do, but
Well,
maybe
in a way we do, because
have that embedded in the back of your head. Don't eat the penny. Don't eat the glimmer.
But I mean, the other thing is what do you derive light from? It's your equipment. Your light power is driven from your equipment.
Yeah.
Well, that's the stat. That's not.
No,
the
but I mean,
Yeah, that's a dangerous area because we
it
know
is a
that people
dangerous
have
area, but
we know that people have a light value, so to say, before they're even raised.
that's true. Well,
The-
yeah, that's true.
I like to think of the lore light as the paracausal ability, and
Right.
it certainly seems like the Fallen have retained a few of those. I mean, you got captains blinking to and fro, and
I definitely see in the Fallen a early version of what the Guardians have perfected.
No, have you seen the similarities between like?
Oh yeah,
what
no,
is
that's
it-
but
what
that's
is
what I
it,
mean is
the striker shot. Well, what is it? The spike grenade, I think,
mhm.
and the shock grenade of the Fallen, and then
right,
you've
but
got-
that's what I mean is I see
That's
that,
like arc energy.
right.
Well,
but-
it is arc
but
energy,
it
I
is
should
arc
say.
energy. But the captains
Yeah.
have the blink. They have blink. And, I mean, anybody who has fought a captain knows that that's exactly what they do. And they always manage to run around the corner when you're about to kill them. It's the most annoying thing in the world. But just like blink. But that's what I mean. I think you can I kind of always took that as it's kind of the test subject. You know, we became guardians from the Traveler. And I'm assuming that this is not the first time that the Traveler has done this dance, like not created guardians, but given something. I mean, obviously it's given technology. So I mean, I could see the captains, quote unquote, the captains there as being early test subjects for certain abilities, like blink. I totally see that, and that would explain why they have some abilities. And then you have the Taken Vandals who have the freaking shields. That's more of Oryx being a douche than it's being the.
I'm going to say this about Glimmer again. New Glimmer comes from reclaimed Golden
Right.
Age stashes and technology, whether a tiny mechanism or an underground load seeded by ancient machines. Now that, once
Now
again,
that's a good point. Seeded by machines.
Exactly. So we
Well,
either
but that
get
could
it
just
from
mean that it is fallen, or it is nanotech, right? Because that would mean that there's a factory just sitting down there producing those nanites.
Right, but I mean, what if ether is nanotech?
exactly. I mean,
Sure.
it says we use it as a
I
power
mean-
source. We use it for a ton of different things.
Yeah, because
You know,
it can be transmuted into anything.
Like, I can't believe how many times I've overlooked this card, and I keep looking at it now, and it
No,
says it
we
right
do
here.
that every
Glimmer
time
can
we
be
do this.
transmuted into nearly anything. Nearly anything, you know?
It's
Basically,
weapons. Yeah, weapons, armor, everything. That's why it takes glimmer to upgrade almost anything.
Food, but boom, tsh.
But
Well, so we think.
yeah,
We don't know about the food part.
don't
And
eat
ether
the
is-
glimmer. Don't eat the glimmer, Willy.
I wanna
Ether
eat
is
the glimmer.
far more than food, right? It is
Right.
much more like they are asphyxiated without it than.
Well, and I
Starve.
think that, and I definitely agree with that. I think it's their sustenance, because that's why they wear the helmets that they wear. So, but
But the other thing that breaks it is that I don't think that the people in the city. I think that they largely don't have access to glimmer. Like, I don't think it exists for them.
I don't think glimmer is for the common individual. I would agree is not a. It's not the common currency used below the tower. I get
Yeah.
the feeling.
No, it's not.
Because
It,
they don't,
it
they
says
don't go,
here
they don't go
it is
outside
the
city.
engine that keeps the city's economy turning.
Right. I mean, I
But
imagine that they might see some meager
does say
scraps
that-
of it, but
And they probably work with it, because like the foundries, a couple of the weapons talk about using small amounts of reprogrammable matter and things like that. So they probably work with it, but I don't imagine. I think it's just a currency from us because it incentivizes
actually-
us to go find it.
Well,
right?
in the
It
sense
does say
that
it
it's a
serves as
commodity.
one of the city's basic currencies, not the tower. You know, you'd think they would specify the tower.
I think we're gonna have a focus fire on glimmer.
Yeah, we're going to end
Yeah,
up. That's going to have to happen.
Let me just put
So-
one thing there, though. In all
Well-
throughout history, there have been basic currencies.
Don't
that
start
the
this
people did not
argument.
have.
Don't start
No,
this
I'm-
argument.
It's not an argument. I just want to put. I just
This
want
is
to put this
going-
out there.
this
This is
gonna-
the last comment.
The black
for people
market
to think about.
argument.
Is that all throughout history there have been basic currencies that the people, so to speak, have not had access to, right?
Yep,
Gold was the basic currency for a lot of medieval Europe.
That's
the
true.
peasants never saw it.
they saw silver and pewter,
Or, if they were lucky, they saw silver.
yeah,
A lot of them saw tin.
or wood.
Yeah. So,
Or fool's gold.
let's just put that out there. But
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I
I,
guess that is wood.
Yeah,
I don't think that Glimmer is the same thing as Ether. I think that Ether is of far more importance, and I do think that it's worth discussing and trying to figure out if it existed before the Traveler shows up.
I think it had to.
Well, again, it could, but it could also be, like I said, that they adapted to it so critically that it was part of their biology.
right. Well, and,
Like, we
and
don't-
I guess that's true. Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah,
And so, like, there has to be a reason why the Traveler chose dead people to turn into guardians. And part of that may be the relationship between giving the light to the Eliksni and them becoming dependent on it.
oh, that's a good point.
So, the Traveler is a giant drug dealer.
Well,
Because you
no,
hooked.
the Traveler is a giant necromancer. Is what the Traveler is.
Well, so what I'm trying to say is it's more like it's a giant evolution machine.
Right.
And it may be aware that the Eliksni, that it had to leave the Eliksni.
Detrimentally.
And it may be aware that, oh, that was probably a bad call. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. Let's try something else next time.
Yeah.
Because, like, it is kind of weird that the Traveler picks dead people, right?
I always just viewed us as liches
Well, but why?
because that's what we are.
But why would
But
you
yeah,
pick
no-
that?
And it's also really interesting. Well, do we want to go down that road?
Nah, let's not.
Okay, we can.
come back
I think.
around
I
to
think
the end or
actually, I am
something.
going to toss in Guardian races as one of the potential focus fire topics because there has been a couple people who have asked for it. So,
And I would just do Guardians. Like, you
Or
could do the races in
yeah,
there.
Guardians. That'd probably be a good one. So
Races,
let's.
classes, everything.
Yeah. Guess we can just go insane on that one. But okay, so let's back up a little bit and go back to something else that we know is the houses, right? This is actually kind of cool for me because this kind of gets more into the political structure of it. And hang on real quick, I got all these houses written down. So, because there's actually more than I thought there were.
Mm-hmm. I hadn't heard of Scarlet.
There's a bunch of houses, and
there's so many
big
cool
props to
things
the House of
about it.
Kings because they seem to be the smartest ones out of the lot when you read about them.
Kings are, oh my gosh, they're the Machiavellis. Okay, so just real quick, these are the known houses, and we know that there are some houses that we don't know that were lost in the whirlwind in the Civil War that kind of came after that. So we know of the House of Devils, we know House Exile, and we'll go into more detail on each of these houses in a minute. So we have Devils, we have Exile, we have Judgment, Kings, Rain, Scar, Stone, Winter, and Wolves. Now, of those, the three that might surprise people because they aren't in the game are House Rain, House Scar, and House Stone. House Stone just recently came into the game with the Taken King, and that's through the weapons?
No, House Stone was around before that.
Oh, was it? Okay. I know that there's one, the Broken Crown, right?
I can't believe you're forgetting one of the most important houses of the Eliksni era. What about the House Judgment, man? Where's the love there?
You said that.
I said that.
You said House Judgment.
I did not hear Judgment.
No.
I'm going to listen to this.
The House the Stoner mentioned in vanilla text from Varix. He mentions them in one of his lines.
Okay, no, you're right. Okay, but so just real quick, the interesting thing. So the Kell of Kells madness that actually came from House Rain. That's
and it might not be madness.
Well, it's not. Well, it's not really madness. It's a prophecy that kind of came about because they were kind of pissed about something else. But it's the Kell of Kells prophecy was from House Rain, and I think House Rain was destroyed by House Winter. I want to say one of them was. There was a big infight between Rain and Scar. Stone was just.
I think they killed each other, right?
Yeah. Well, one of them was killed by Winter, and then. Well, one of them was killed by Winter, and I think the other one was just destroyed from something.
Yeah.
And then Stone was destroyed by the whirlwind.
Well, probably.
Well, the Kell
on that
was
at the very least.
The Kell was nom-nommed.
So interestingly enough, the only ones that we know actually
exist to the Archon or the Prime Servitor from Stone.
That's true. No. That's true, and that is a fair point. Stone is not confirmed that it's completely extinct. We do know that the Kell was. Well, it's safe to assume that the Kell was destroyed.
And interestingly enough, the only ones that we know existed before the whirlwind were Stone and Rain, and Judgment.
And Judgment, yeah.
So possibilities exist that some of the ones that we call by certain names now could very well be
creations or remnants of the others. You think?
Yes.
Yeah, because House Rain sounds like the House of Prophecies, because in the Kell of Kells card, Varric says House Rain lost in whirlwind, no survivors, but I keep their prophecies.
Yeah. Which sort of solidifies Judgment as record keepers and arbiters. Very Chinese there. Actually.
And then also because they kind of... So that whole hierarchy of the houses works for every house except for Judgment. Judgment kind of was in every house. You would have a Baron. I don't know really. They were kind of outside.
They were the only house that had no Kell.
Right.
They were
because they were
standards
in
and practices.
Yeah,
they
were
had
in
someone
all
with
the houses.
everyone. They were oversized.
Which is what I was saying. It's very Chinese in their wandering judges, right? That's a way that.
That is.
That's the way the Chinese functioned, as that their judges were also their police officers. And it was a huge system. Like, their system was much closer to a justice system because it was all about accountability and responsibility versus a legal system more closer to what America has, where it's about the letter of the law.
Right.
Which is what it sounds like Judgment is.
And it looks like all these other guys after the Traveler left, they went absolutely crazy,
Yeah, well, I think everyone just panicked.
Says here, yeah, exactly. Whirlwind ripped away the past, all honor lost, all hope, judgment not enough, can't keep the wolves from the kings, scar from winter, fell to fighting, fell to hate. And then they end up, it's the other fallen houses. Judgment's over here trying to say, guys, we need to stick together, and everybody ends up slaughtering them instead, except for Varix, and so poor Varix is the last one, but he still holds on, and that's what actually makes me like Varix as a character. After I started looking into his grimoire, because at first, when House of Wolves comes out as a player, it's like this. You have this Fallen that's here. You never really trust him in the first place because of everything you read about him being bad, and then you have Varix over here. Where is your ship, Guardian? It's like
he's the Reef's Cade.
Yeah,
and that is how I view him.
But still, mind your business. That's my ship.
Yeah.
You worry about your own ship.
There's also the card. There's the card where where Petra will say he tries to get her killed with bad intel, and she knows it, and then they kind of have a back and forth.
Yeah, and then she sends us. So
yeah.
Well, and also remember that Petra has a bad rap when we get to her.
Yes, Petra.
I think that is actually relevant because I think that's important, and maybe why Varix was doing that. Because that's Varix's way is to that's how he screwed Skolas, right? He gave him bad intel, and Skolas got wrecked.
That's very true.
And he did it on purpose. Skolas ends up finding out, which is why when he gets released, that's the one who he's thinking about just destroying Varix because he betrayed him. Yep. And then Varix betrays him again by helping us hunt him down.
And the ship thing I actually think is important, and I think it's somewhat innocuous, because I think that part of that is that they honestly don't know how ships work anymore.
Right.
And I think that
it's actually curiosity more than wanting
to
escape.
He wants to find a new way to get ships that aren't Archon controlled.
Oh, and that goes into the other theory that we had about the Elder Cipher and him in the House Exile.
Yeah.
Which is also an interesting thing because I'm looking at the picture for the Grimoire card. So I've never actually put this together, but he's actually wearing the colors of House Exile.
Is he?
Yeah, he's wearing green and gold.
Well, that's Judgment as well.
Well, and I guess, but House Exile is green and gold.
He's wearing Judgment colors. Stop it, Blue. Stop it.
So is Exiles. But anyway, the other fun part about Varix is he never denies being called Kell of Kells.
No, he doesn't. So I think that's more nervousness and shyness.
I want to say that's true, but I found that very interesting that he's like, oh look, a monitor. I'm just gonna stop talking to you because that was it was one of the House of Wolves card. I'll have to find it here in a second, but it's like Petra's like, you think you're the Kell of Kells, and he's like, oh look, a monitor. Oh look, the Guardians.
It's more like maybe you're the Kell of Kells, and he's just like, nope.
Oh look, Guardians need us. Bye.
Yeah. Because I think that there's a good chance that Varix is.
I think that he has a chance of becoming.
Well, so I think that it is a legitimate prophecy. This game has weirder stuff than that.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely.
No, so I actually. Oh no, go ahead, Dan.
So I think that I think it is a legitimate prophecy, and I think that it may very well refer to Varix because I think that, like so many others of his race, he's forgotten what they actually are, and that his strength, his peaceful strength, is the right way to do things. As opposed to...
I think he refers to himself more as cowardly. And,
cowardly and...
He calls it Dreg strength specifically.
Yeah. Which is basic weak strength to them. Low strength.
The timid truth. It's not the timid truth, but it sounds so similar to the...
Does anyone else... Oh, no, go ahead, Blue.
No, go.
I was going to say, does anyone else find it a little odd that Varix is the only fallen, presumably Dreg,
that talks in English?
No, not only that, but to lose his top set of arms. Every Dreg I've ever ran into has lost the bottom set.
Well, and that's because the Dregs, it's... I think Varix, if I remember, that was kind of self-inflicted.
No, it wasn't. Skolas did it.
Skolas did it, that's right. So, but that's an interesting point. So, can they not regrow their top arms?
Well,
I think they can. I think that keeping them that way is the self-inflicted part.
Oh, no, I don't know. That's interesting, because you don't think he would have grown his arms back by now over in the reef?
No,
I don't
and that's
think
what
the
I'm saying.
Queen's ripping off his arms,
no.
because she
I think
treats
it's-
him, you know,
I
at
think
least
it's
at a vandal level.
self-inflicted.
I think Damo's onto something though. It's not that he can't. It's not that he can't. It's that he chooses not to.
Yes.
Because I mean, we know that they can regrow their limbs. So.
And it's a very weird biology that's like, you cannot regrow one set of arms. Like this set, okay. But
Yeah, I mean that's the. And Josh brings up a point. He said, "I thought regrowth is influenced by how they feel in the hierarchy."
I don't think it's that. 'Cause I think the docs are literally machine implants that say no more arms for you.
Well, and that's true because we know that there is a patrol mission that you collect the docs from the dregs, and it's a dock that they put on the limbs to keep them from growing. So I mean, yeah, I guess that's a point. His robo arms, if you look at them, you kind of seem to have like a dock like cap on them.
Yep.
Apparently, as I'm looking at it, the Fallen don't always need to have their little fancy masks on, because there is a card in here that I was reading where Varix actually has his mandibles out.
It's when he's in his room and the ether
and he's actually thinking about it's not too late to betray the Queen, you know, to rejoin the House
but
of Wolves.
if you read is that the one where he's carving the amethyst?
No, it's not.
Hang on.
There's so many, actually, when
know,
you
there's
look at just stuff for him.
Varix is all over the place.
Yeah, when you look at... I went to look up Varix, and I just started looking through stuff. That's what I'm doing a lot here, because it's like, whoa, this dude's a lot deeper.
Yeah,
Well, he's obviously a golden child of the game. Like,
And he's going to be the one, if anybody, it's going to end up being Varix that turns the Fallen around.
yeah, it's the only possible avenue.
Yeah, he's the one right now. He has the ability to do it. He has the Prince's crows running around looking for the Kells right now, because he's not the one.
Well, and he also
Apparently
he's also extremely loyal to the House of Judgment, which is, you know, House of Judgment always has to keep the houses together. Like, that's the house's calling, I guess you would say. That's their sole purpose of being. And I get the sense from the grimoire that you read with him. He is very, very devoted to that vocation. You know, he doesn't view it as a pride. I mean, like he says, House Judgment must survive, and then he kind of ends it with the whole yes question, but which everyone loves to make fun of him for. But I think in some of these things, it's actually him kind of questioning himself, because he even questions whether or not he was right to betray Skolas. He said that Skolas might have been right, and you know, I would disagree with that, but
it's the card, the ruling house.
Despair.
Yeah,
part of that's just despair. Like,
which one was it? Well, sorry,
his people are so far down he can't even see. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Damo.
I was just gonna say his people are so far down he can't see another avenue. So he looks at Skolas and he's like, well, I guess that's an avenue of sorts.
I guess that kind of works.
It's something.
Like, this is awful, but I guess it's the least awful, sort of.
Kind of like he
part of me
accepts
wonders,
what would be the timid truth otherwise.
And part of me wonders if he thinks Skolas might have been right, because he might just be like, well, at least we'll all be dead and stop suffering.
Right. Yeah, he does seem to like his suffering.
Well, it says it here, you know, in the ruling house. Here's a fun fact that I'm not sure if anybody else has found yet, but apparently Varix's room in the reef is the hollowed out catch hole. Doesn't say exactly whose catch, but it's a hollowed out catch hole.
I mean, there were moths on the ground after.
Opened and closed, and
he also likes sitting on pieces of robots.
And this is where it gets interesting. It says Varix to himself goes after winter, devils, kings, seeks power. Kings deny him. Kell of Kings hides well. Perhaps he will take back the great machine. Perhaps I chose the wrong side. It is not too late. And Petra interrupts him, saying that the crows are reporting that Skolas is back in the Ishtar sink.
Yeah, and I think that's what Damo's saying, though. I think that's kind of like he's just talking to himself, and he's like, well, maybe this isn't the right...
seriously doubting himself there. He's actually thinking about, and they talk about how, at that point, Skolas is also messing with the Vex machinery. So that's what made Varix think. And there's another card, too.
There's the Hunt for Skolas. Yeah, it's the Hunt for Skolas. Well,
is it the one where he talks about Osiris using Vex tech?
No, that's a different one. But the Hunt for Skolas, he says, they always fear him. If not this Skolas, then another Kell. It is why the Queenbreakers rise and the prison breached. No one will call you Kell when a true heir makes a claim. He's talking to the Queen. He's basically like, basically, you're not a Kell. You took the title, but you don't know what it is.
Well, I think it's more that, she has no chance. She is a pretender. She's just the best pretender he's got. Which is why I think if House Exiles is his new team, I think that's why. Because I think he's trying a new tack. Because as I said in the chat, not here yet, but as I said, it's interesting that the House of Exiles are the only house we are not aggressively sent after. We basically destabilize and destroy every fallen house we encounter, except Exiles, which we only encounter once at their own behest.
There is that, yeah. And that's
they
the very
pick a
first
fight with
mission,
us.
I believe, isn't it?
Well, and
on Mars, or on the moon, yeah.
Well, yeah, because the moon. But it's, just to make the devil's advocate, though, that's also because they don't really have a leadership, so how much more destabilized can you get?
Well, I mean,
as far as the fallen are,
they have to have some leadership. There's something there for sure.
There is something because they're still alive.
Yeah, so I definitely think they do, and I think it is probably significant. Maybe it was made significant after the fact, but I do think it is a thing that we have not yet been sent to go destabilize them. And note that it is Varix who sends us to destabilize Fallen an awful lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't ever really go after kings, though. The only reason we ever really go for them is because Skolas is trying to flip them. That's about it, right?
Well, that and because kings were... So in the Grimoire of the Kings are also the ones that have the spying equipment on the city, if you notice that.
Mm-hmm.
Also, don't forget that it's Varix's weird intel, aside from Petra, who he doesn't let in on his secrets to be able to communicate with us, who sends us into the king's throne room, who probably won't be there, but shock and surprise, they're all there.
I love that. Oh, you're back.
I mean, to me, that's basically him being like, I'm going to give you plausible deniability, but you're going to go murder the king leadership.
Well, and also realize the House of Kings were predominant in the whole Fallen War. They just manipulated the other houses into doing the dirty work.
Smarter about it.
They didn't actually send any of their soldiers. And actually, if I remember right, when Skolas approached the Kell, he didn't respond himself. He sent 2 of his best assassins as a response. He didn't send them as assassins, but he sent them in response.
No, it's 2 kings and 1 wolf that you kill there.
Yeah.
So I think that was the one that Skolas was actually trying to negotiate with. I think that because he already has Winter by the time you get to them, right?
That's
you don't
true.
actually end up taking out Winter. Skolas does. And Devils we take out before any of this happens, basically.
Yeah.
Right.
We leave them destabilized.
Yeah.
So, but I think that it says a lot that he was actually sitting at that table talking to the kings as opposed to.
Well, but what I'm saying is, and hang on, let me see if I can pull this up, because I don't think it was the Kell of Kings.
That's fair.
Because I think, if I remember right, hang on, I think it was Yavik. No, that was Wolf Baron. Yeah, no, wait, hang on. Pulling this up. It was Paskin, I think, was the King Baron.
Right, but that's kind of what I'm saying, is that he did negotiate with them. He didn't go any longer.
Right, he sent it, but I can't find it right now. But it was something like Paskin was not he was an assassin. Like, that was what he did. That was how, like, I can't remember where I read that, but I'm looking for it. But it wasn't the Kell of Kings.
No, but I don't think any negotiation probably happens between Kells. It's like nobody
true.
talks to the king. Nobody talks to the emperor.
Though I think it was also kind of a slap in Skolas's face, because Skolas was calling himself the Kell of Kells, and the Kell was like, "Yeah, that's nice. You can talk to my Baron."
Maybe, but Skolas wasn't actually there either.
Well,
so
that's true. I think it was I think that was Yavik. I think was the one that was there. I remember.
I just think that that's the sort of gesture that happens between leaders who are basically at war, but also seeking an alliance. You don't put yourself in a position where they can kill.
Right, yeah. Yavik was a minor lieutenant of Skolas's during the Reforce, who evaded capture after the Cybele uprising. After Skolas returned to the House of Wolves, he named Yavik a baron to reward his loyalty and sent him to Earth to be his negotiator with the houses of kings and devils.
Right, which to me seems like a sign of respect, because that's
for
guy's
Yavik,
hardcore.
Yeah, for Yavik, yes.
Is he the Ravenous? Is that the guy?
No,
he's the guy.
Yavik.
He's one of the 3 guys you have to kill in the king's control room.
Right.
Oh, okay.
He's basically the diplomat between those 2 houses and Wolves.
Yeah, I think you can find all those cards in the Mad Raider, as Willy put it.
Yeah.
Well, Madrid, or however you want to say it.
It would be, I believe,
But
Mariah.
it does chronicle
That's
various
Zig-zag
details, even though it's still kind of spaced out. Gives it the juicy tidbits of how the Queen ended up taking over the House of Wolves specifically.
okay. The
And
Ravenous was villain.
one thing I do want to point out, too, is that it is the House of Devils still that are primarily on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
It's the House of Kings that, once again, we don't see that often.
Right, because they're the planners. They're the Machiavellis of the Fallen.
Very elusive, and when they do attack, they mean business, which,
Yeah, they don't have a middle ground.
Yeah, they still have their Kell. More than likely, they still have their Prime Servitor and their Archon right now.
So I think, this is Spinfoil Hattie as heck, but I think that eventually when we get the Varix DLC, possibly, and this might even be the Destiny 2 story, it'll be Varix v. Kings.
I could see that. Because the Kings are going to be... the Kings are really the current power. They're the only ones that haven't been truly destabilized, I think.
And they're not off.
Winter is pretty much gone. Wolves are, gone.
They're completely annihilated.
Yeah, they've been...
They found a Prime and we killed that too. So
he pulled
they
them
didn't
all
even
through,
have a
he
Prime.
pulled them
They
all
happened to
throughout
find
time.
one, and then we destroyed it. So
He did a really nice
Anybody
thing.
that's
He pulled
left
them
is
all
probably
through,
joining Exiles.
Right. Well, there's that, but I was going to say he did a really nice treat for us. He pulled them all for time so we could kill them all in one place.
Right.
So
yeah,
but then
it's true as well.
Devils is still kind of running around, but they're not
In
in a
disarray.
good place.
Yeah.
And then
That could be who Varix is sending the crows after too.
the
He
Devils.
could feel that the Kell of the Kings, is the Kell of Kells. which would make sense.
Well,
I don't
know.
think he likes the kings at all.
I don't see Varix as being a fan of the kings because of the brutality of the kings.
I think the kings are the opposite, the anti-Varix.
But I don't see Varix being very pro Kell of Kells anyways. Because
that's what I was trying to say earlier, is that I don't think that the Kell of Kells is madness or evil. I think that Skolas's interpretation of it was wrong. I think that he thought he was the Kell of Kells, when in fact, like, the Kell of Kells is probably the one that leads them back from where they're at.
And that's what Varix is looking for right now.
Right, exactly.
So he either sent those crows after, I mean, how many Kells have we talked about have been destroyed tonight?
But I don't think it has to be the Kell, and I think Varix knows that. I don't think
actually, if you... Hang on. Yeah, no, keep talking. I'm going to pull that prophecy up, because...
I think it could be anybody, right? It is... I mean, it's basically the once and future king prophecy, is what I think it's... I think
my theory is he's looking for the same person Aldrin is. He's looking for Marisov. He wants to find her.
No, I don't think
Marisov
so.
is a Kell of Kells. You heard it here first. Spin full on.
He basically says that she is not the Kell of Kells directly.
Because he says that
he didn't mean it.
Well, no, but he says when the true heir steps forward, you will no longer hold that title.
Yeah.
And I mean, going back, House of Rain says, before him foes will flee or fall, but he will heal the houses, make them whole. The great machine will marvel, moved by might, and come to crown him Kell of Kells. What whirlwind whisked away will be rewrought, and every Kell and Ketch will kneel to the Kell of Kells. It's not a... I mean, it's might, but it's might through healing.
It's good might, not evil. Right, realistically.
And, I mean, also, just think about it. We all, have our own theories about the Traveler, but what consistently does the Traveler seem to respect is a bringing up of a civilization, not a destruction of a civilization.
Yeah.
And so I think for the great machine to be marveled and moved, it's not going to be the might to tear down walls, it's going to be the strength to build them.
Yeah. And I think that it really is the fallen version of the once and future king sort of thing.
Completely agree.
Are you guys waiting for me to get all spinful here?
Let's do it.
I thought I already went ahead and went there.
Oh,
once again, I'm going to say Marisov is the Kell of Kells. Whether
it's not. It's definitely not. That's even worse than Payne's a person.
Payne's a person. Is Payne the Kell of Kells?
There you go.
There's something Willy can get behind.
No, I don't know
the
that...
Kell of Kells. You've heard it here first.
It works for a prophecy, but the whole Kell of Kells thing doesn't really fit with House Judgment for me. They're built on oversight and decentralization of,
Well,
and
it's not necessarily decentralization. They just want peace and a proper alignment of the civilization.
And not one supreme ruler.
But okay, and yes, that's what House Judgment wants, but that's not necessarily what Varix wants.
But it could be, because you're making a leap there and assuming that an absolute ruler will be tyrannical, right? I mean,
that's true.
Especially in mythology, there's a lot of examples of benevolent.
Yeah, and King Arthur is the once and future king. That's kind of where
I was looping back around to.
Right? Yeah, I mean, and he's not the only one. I mean,
but
there's a lot of dictators out there who are dictators just by the definition, but are not the negative connotation is not necessarily always accurate.
But even King Arthur held counsel with
and yes, and I don't think he's saying that. Never once do they say that the Kell of Kells would not.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that's what Damo's saying. It's not.
I'm not saying he's necessarily bad. I'm saying supreme ruler is what I'm getting from Kell of Kells prophecy.
I don't.
I kind of do, but I mean, look at Caesar. Caesar was a heartless dictator, but he also understood how to lead an empire.
Yeah.
And he did, regardless of what you feel about Caesar, he did a lot of stuff that brought the empire to the level of being a extreme world power, and that could be something along those lines.
Take that to philosophy chat.
To redirect it to Philo chat.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not dragging
now,
along
here's
with
a good question that was
connotations.
brought up in the chat, and I think it'd be nice to argue about here.
Oh, yeah.
In the Books of Sorrow, I think a lot of people felt that it was the Eliksni, that the formless one was showing orcs, hey, this is how you destroy civilization.
I mean, that could be, theoretically.
The one that, okay, wait. Are we talking, so there's a couple. Are we talking to the one that he was observing the destruction of when Crota was being a...
Yes, the formless one, the darkness. The one who says, orcs, my friend, sit down, relax, put down your sword.
Oh, there's so many spinfoil jumps there.
Um,
Not even going to touch on the topic.
You
think it's the formless one.
No, we didn't even touch all of that within 2 weeks.
It is very odd
strange
that they seem to chronicle each little civilization that's destroyed. Well, it could... Yeah,
no, they don't chronicle even a portion of them. There's one where he talks about 17.
Yeah, that's what they they kind of dismissively oh yeah, we destroyed 17 civilizations.
Oh yeah, I guess you're.
No, they basically chronicle the Teox civilizations, and that's it.
Yeah, that's very true.
But they actually.
No, there's the Yugu or whatever they were, the
Kugu and
the large beast that here eat my bodies.
That's not chronicle. That's like a footnote, isn't it? Isn't it like
it is
2 sentences in one card?
It was like a paragraph that explained it.
Oh,
I think it was just
they gave it like a whole card. They talked about how they did.
Yeah, no, they did. They did do a whole card, but it was a short. It was one of the shorter cards, but it was definitely one of those what the hell are you talking about?
It was almost like Gary Busey wrote it. It was very odd.
I don't know that the conquest of the Fallen is contained in the books. I reread it, and I still don't. Nothing seems to fit. It is interesting that it's called the Whirlwind and the Maw as opposed to anything else.
And damn it, we had that conversation. I think that was why I leapt to that assumption, was because he's like, yeah, we're gonna go watch the Maw eat something, and I was like, wait, what? Like, it's like,
yeah.
But it, I
want to say it's Chelchus that's mentioned in there too. It's a warlock bond or something. It says Chelchus, the Kell of Stone, stood before the Maw.
Yeah, he stood, and he also is the one that asked where has the Great Machine gone.
And
that's
but it's presumably right after he stands.
That did not end well for him.
Or as he's standing there getting chewed on, he's like, "Where did it go?"
He actually has the Raid scout rifle named after him.
Yeah.
Good call, Willy.
I think all of those weapons are the last vestiges of the societies that
because that's an interesting point too, because if you go, I can't remember which raid weapon it is, but it says we should have listened to the Queen. Which Queen?
Which is an interesting one, but
because
I want to say it's the fusion rifle. I know that much,
no, the fusion rifle is I am Mita, Consort of Stars.
Oh, that's right.
Consort of Stars. I will not be forgotten. I believe it's
too.
I believe it's the machine gun. No, that's
it might be the sniper.
Quillam's Terminus.
No, yeah, Quillam's Terminus. If only we had heeded the Queen. But that one cannot be the Awoken one, because the sniper rifle is the Awoken one. Paladin Yasmin Eld.
Science of Yasmin.
Yeah, which is an interesting. Did you catch that? The last name.
Which one is it? Which one?
Yasmin Eld.
Yeah, I totally was looking at something else, and I saw that, and I was like, "Oh, what? What is this? What is this Tree of Life nonsense?"
Well, I was actually thinking Dark Tower.
Dark Tower, or King Arthur, or it's like I did see that, and I was like, "What?"
But anyway, so I don't know who that refers to with the Queen, but I don't think.
Well, it's interesting.
Know.
It's interesting.
I don't think
because up until point, they have not mentioned anything about female Fallen. Like, it's always been Kell.
Baroness.
Well, okay, that's true. The Baroness, I think that was an argument. I think that was the do Fallen have children argument. But like To me, it seems like if that was about a fallen, so could it be that one of those houses had a queen instead of a Kel?
It could be. I think that it's intentional that there's only one for each faction. So I don't think it's the Fallen, and I don't think it's the Awoken, but I do think that it's significant that it doesn't have an actual flavor text.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because everything else does.
Yeah.
Really quick, I do want to point out there's only the one Baroness that's mentioned. That's Drevis. There's the it's Moraids. All right, you guys could have said, "Hey, there's no D there in the middle."
I was just gonna let you keep talking.
I was picturing.
Anyway, that's the one that talks about how they capture her, and then once she gets away, there's the bounty, and it tells you how she led a strike of the Silent Fang into the rays of Amethyst and killed Petra's sisters.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Oh, she actually
there's
killed...
There's also a Taken Fallen that's a Baroness.
And there's a Cade 6 card where he kind of recollects being...
That was a Vandal, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, female Vandal.
But it's still a female. I think they're mixed. We just don't see. We can't.
Well, that's true. That's entirely
can't
possible.
see the difference.
So
apparently, you're supposed to see the difference at some point because somehow Cade could tell. I mean, he's Cade,
we're not going to get into that.
He's freaking Malcolm Reynolds. There. It doesn't even count.
Yeah. You are correct because he just by sight, I guess, knows it's a female, and I don't know about y'all, but I couldn't tell when I saw Drevis.
Here's another fun spin trail. And this was back from Vanilla. It was a post that I saw on Reddit, and so Blade Dancers. One of the fun things with the Blade Dancer is going invisible and sneaking up on NPCs in patrol and just listening to what they say. And it's hilarious because you get some actually really funny flavor text. And one of the flavor texts from one of the House of Exiles on the moon is in patrol. If you actually go invisible and you sneak up behind one of the dregs, there's a chance that when you pop back into visibility and everything jumps and they all start shooting. There was actually a dreg that they had a clip of, and it screamed. It goes, "Ah, the darkness!" before it starts shooting at you.
Huh.
So, and that, of course, was the whole, that whole giant conspiracy theory that we are actually the evil side.
I don't know, man. I remember that, and I think that was full Spin Metal Jacket right there.
Oh, yeah, I know. Well, that's
that's paying as a person stuff right there.
Yeah, for damn sure.
See, that gives me hope that that it's just your.
Oh, I know, but at this point, I'm going to continue to argue it just to argue it.
So what I suspect, if that is intentional and put in there by Bungie, is that I actually think it just reinforces what we've been saying, and that's that they're so far gone they can't even fathom that we might be allies. They just assume that we're keeping the Traveler as a prisoner.
Yeah, it's
because the Darkness attacked and wanted the Traveler, right? We can presume that that's part of their history, and that we have the Traveler, right? So it's a thin line to go. Well, they took the Traveler.
As soon as I search this, the guy posted on Reddit that it's not true.
Oh, okay.
It's to me that's like a grunt yelling, "He's a demon!"
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
You know what? I'll take that as a compliment.
And just on a side note, grunts yell the most amazing things.
I regret everything.
I made bad choices.
I love the grunt. I'm so
that was my
tangent
text
on there. Best part about Halo 5 is the grunts coming back with their comments.
Yeah, I made bad choices was a text message from my friend.
Yeah.
This time.
I regret nothing. Yeah, so the Fallen kind of they definitely have males and females, but I don't know that there's any kind of gender hierarchy. It seems like they're all equal, but
I mean, gender hierarchies are actually a fairly rare thing.
Especially in societies where it's military meritocracy.
And where we've gotten, like, theoretically they had a long golden age, right? It already
Right.
seems like in our version of the world, in Destiny, there is no more gender boundaries, as it were.
Yeah,
in
that's
the
very
Reef
true.
there are.
Well, technically there is. You
The
know,
Reef is- but
a
the Reef
majority
is a
of the
whole different
hierarchies, if
society.
you think about it, have the king always trumps the queen, except for in chess.
Well, I'm saying
you-
in the Destiny world, there does not seem to be any actual gender boundaries for human beings, right? And we don't know that the Awoken even have one because Petra is like second in command.
Well, it's a matriarchal.
I'd say
society.
But that's
Aldrin is
because
more of the second in command.
It's
Well,
no, Aldrin can't be the second in command because the women have all the power in
Yeah.
the Awoken society. The men they take a back seat. That's why all the Queen's Guard are women.
but we don't know that that's. I mean, yeah, I guess that's true.
They
But still,
actually
outside of
make a
them,
point.
who are actually a new society.
Yeah, fairly new. And they make a point of making a big deal about the fact that the Queen confides in Aldrin that is out of the ordinary, for the Awoken, that is. But yeah, you're right, Dan.
But the other thing
Largely,
is
there's
the
not a whole lot of
speaker.
that.
The speaker. You know, look at the speaker. I mean, we know it's
She-
he.
yeah,
It's
she's
she. It.
No, we don't.
Whatever it
She's-
is, Nokris. You know, whatever. Might not even be.
Oh,
human,
enough of that.
But,
Pain as a person.
Yeah. I mean, I like that theory too, Blue, but it's pretty freaking far out there. Come on, let's just own that up.
I think I broke a couple people's heads when I tried to do my compromise.
And Kabir is frickin' Zur. Zur is Kabir.
That one actually made a little bit more sense than
Nope.
And no, that makes no,
No, it
sense.
doesn't. It doesn't.
Shut
It
your
doesn't.
Makes
damn mouth.
0 sense.
You shut your lying mouth. Yeah, no. It's not even close.
It's not even funny anymore.
But I was going to say the speaker as a figure, they make a very good point in saying in presenting that figure as not being physically determinable on what sex it is.
Well, also,
mask-
the speaker may very well have no power. I mean,
He's an Archon.
kind of. I mean,
Mhm.
Got a big ghost.
it doesn't seem like anybody really listens to him unless the Vanguard listens to him.
Well, I think Census kind of listens to him, kind of.
Saint listen to him.
Yeah, okay. Saint's a zealot. I mean, essentially, he's a crusader. So, I'm just saying, like,
no, he didn't.
his rules don't really seem to apply unless the Vanguard says, yeah, that's probably an okay rule.
Well, and I think that's also the balance of the power. You know, obviously, like we were speaking in the factions episode, that's definitely the balance there. Is he's literally the speaker, the figurehead, the talking head of the
But the
city,
speaker is
but
politically, he's just the president. He
Correct.
doesn't really have a say in anything. He's just the one that gives the
we're
big
getting
fancy
on
speeches.
Such thin ice here.
You there in the mask. Sit there in the...
You just
Yeah.
There's another
That's what we
good
need
point
to do.
there.
We
He
need
always
to
wears
make-
the mask.
We need to get a bobblehead of the speaker and send it to Willy, just so he can sit there and have it like he can pretend like it's talking to him.
So
Brilliant.
back to the theoretical, actual topic.
Yeah, this is very indicative of what our chat usually goes.
It devolves.
So I really don't think... So I think we see female Fallen, we just can't designate it.
That's a fair point. And, I mean, yeah, you guys are correct. They are in the Grimoire, the Baroness,
Okay.
and well, we've encountered the Baroness.
And like there have to be new Fallen because they talk about new dregs going through the ritual. So there have to be...
So here's a thought: is the ritual that the dregs go through? Do you think that's part of their being fallen, or do you think that was a process that they?
Oh no, I definitely think that's Fallen.
Okay, I mean,
that
I'm
screams,
agreeing.
that screams
The
violent
fact that they-
dictator.
Yeah, the fact that they make a point of saying that it's a humiliation and degradation, to me, seems to scream that.
Oh, it seems like you think about this as well. The darkness, the formless one, gives orcs the power to take. Maybe it does that itself with every race in a different way. Like we've had the spinful theory that the Yusamine or the Yukamine, they either were or they had some kind of involvement with the Vex. you know.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a good chance it's the same thing. The Eliksni were the Eliksni before. They were this race that actually seemed like it wasn't that bad. Now they're the Fallen. You know, they're all pirates. They're all stealing, killing. This is mine. I'm taking it. And it doesn't seem like they were like that before. So
No, I definitely think that that's an effect of the whirlwind, but it's worth discussing and trying to figure out why they're still around, because they're one of the only examples we have of that in the story, right? Most races that run into Oryx and his crew do not walk away from it, it seems.
Yeah.
Right, which is, I think, the other interesting, tie into the Book of Sorrows is that it wasn't Oryx that, if the Eliksni were the race that he was observing, it's to be noted that it wasn't Oryx that was there, which might be a point of why, a lot of people are like, it can't be they're not in the Book of Sorrows because he destroyed all of them. Well, but he didn't, because there were some that he observed and then he had to go home because his dumbass son opened up the world to the Vex, and he was like, I gotta go. Free.
I mean, that could be. It could also just be that, like, either this happened longer ago than we thought, which is a possibility. It could be that he didn't quite understand exactly what they were doing with their society, and he underestimated their ability to escape. Or it could be that Chelchis gave them time to escape.
Yeah, and that's
like
the
that
other
theory
thing.
best. Yeah.
Is like Chelchis was the stopgap. He was the one that just kind of sacrificed himself to keep them off their backs.
I definitely
Still, I feel like the Fallen didn't look like they do now before they were Fallen.
I think they did.
I think they
no.
did.
There's actually
I don't think they
there's a
did.
card. There's a card. It talks about them before. It's the mystery card, the Vault of Glass card, and it's a ghost. And I don't know why it's called Mystery, the Vault of Glass, but it says the image clears of dirt and dust as a hand wipes the lens clean. A figure holds the ghost up, looking into the lens. Harsh light from an unfamiliar sun backlights the four-armed creature, making it impossible to see its face. Its massive head turns, and a clicking and chittering voice can be heard speaking to something off-screen. While the noises themselves are harsh, the tone and content seem almost gentle. A curious creature, not a violent or angry one. It goes on to kind of describe the strange flora and fauna, and then the last sentence of it says, and beyond it all, above the clouds, hangs a perfect alabaster sphere. The image wobbles, shaking, flickering as the ghost is blinking, and the fragment ends. This is almost to me like a direct view of the Eliksni homeworld.
Right, except Damo had a really good point, is we know that's the Vault of Glass one's correct.
Yes.
We know that we also had the Vault of Glass ghost that kind of was the dead orbit, wet dream of running away. And then I think the other vault, there's three of them. And I think the other Vault of Glass one, and I can't...
It was eternal war between the Vex and the Exo.
Right. It was...
Exactly.
So this, and Damo actually made the point, what if that's the new monarchy future? What if that's not the Eliksni homeworld, that's ours? That's Earth. And New Monarchy is in power, and we've finally brokered a peace and repaired everything.
Grew 2 more arms?
No.
I think that is the Fallen, and they're living.
Oh, I see. Where they're living.
They're living. I mean, and that was where Dam and I kind of went back and forth about the whole. Yeah, good luck getting the city to live in peace with the people that they've been fighting for as long as most of them can remember. But I mean, it's possible. I mean, I will concede that it is not impossible. It's just you would be fighting an uphill battle on that one.
And I'm not even sure that that's as true as it seems, because while they're scared, it's still probably there's still probably enough of a golden age there for people to be like, yes, I would be pretty happy if the killing just stopped.
And that, and that's true. I mean, that is very true. They've been besieged by people or by a race that's been wanting, to kill them for a very long time.
And it's not like the Cabal or the Hive or the Vex, which all have intent, right? Like, the Fallen really do seem like they just want to stop starving.
I think, especially the lower echelons of it, I definitely think that's the case. I would think that if you offered to drag away to get enough ether without having to, and the condition was you have to work alongside this person, it's probably going to be like, okay.
That sounds awesome. Wait,
yeah.
I get a bed?
Yeah.
And nobody shoots me?
I don't have to stab people with guns?
Oh, Lord.
For the
God
record,
damn it, Tanix.
for the record, one of the first games I played with Damoel was like a 10-minute diatribe about how they gave dregs knives and threw them against the Guardians.
Oh, we were running the Nightfall in Tanix.
Oh my god!
Because that's where that rant always comes up. Because there's that one scene where Tanix throws like 20 dregs at you, and all of them just have knives, and all you do is mow them down, and it's just like, how, like, even cruel and calculating. How is that even a sort of efficient use of resources?
This is how the dreg union came into fruition.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a little bit better off than a thrall. They just get to run at you with their claws.
So the thrall makes sense because they don't have limited resources, and they're very clear about that. Like, those people breed like, I don't know, like radioactive rabbits. Like, that makes sense to me, right? This is more like taking bad soldiers in medieval Europe and giving them a sword, right? They didn't. They gave them crossbows.
Yeah.
Like, you are terrible and cannot get anywhere near the enemy. Here, don't get anywhere near the enemy.
Except instead of that, they're giving them broomsticks.
Right?
Is
They're
it like
giving them
the,
knives. Like, here's a halfpenny knife. Go.
Yeah. It's like the Polish soldiers in World War II. You get the gun, you get the bullets. Stay close to one another.
Except that's a bad analogy because it worked for the Polish.
Well as it could, but
Yeah, no, I don't think.
Oh my god! Well, for a while it did until they figured out, you could just run them out with tanks. But
love their tanks.
Neither here nor there. Spin foil. Speak now or forever hold your peace. We got 10 minutes.
Now, are we talking just any spin foil, or are we
I'm
talking
not
back to
any
the
spin
Eliksni
foil, Willy. Fallen spin foil.
Pain is a person.
Topic. Pain is a fallen?
yeah, Pan's the Kell of Kells. Didn't you
I was
that?
just going to say, Pan is the Kell of Kells. We know the truth now.
Oh my god!
I'm going to go ahead. I think I still got to go with Marisov. She's a big piece of the picture, if not the Kell of Kells.
So I do agree 100% that she's a big part of the picture. But I just don't think she's the Kell of Kells.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to agree with me.
Oh, no, we aren't. We're not. I think we're actually not to. It's part of my contract.
Me and you have been agreeing way
It's
more
part of
than
my
I expected
contract.
tonight, and I really don't like it, if I'm being
Sorry? Stop being rational?
Quit saying smart things and I'll stop
Right.
agreeing with you.
Yeah.
Go back to what you were saying.
So I think, if anything, she's going to be like a Merlin. She'll be the enabler, the external force that keeps things going.
Now, what stinks is we know we're not going to get any more really juicy Grimoire until Destiny 2 at this point.
Well, let's not read too much into that. I get what you're saying, but it's not necessarily true.
It is true.
No, they've just said that they're not doing any more expansion updates. Like, there is no way they think that a rave or a
They
raid.
thought
a raid
that
is
the
not
Dark
forthcoming.
Below
I'll totally
getting
take a
away?
wave. Justin and I just both did
was
that.
a giant expansion.
But that just
the
means that they
raid.
won't do that all at once.
Right, and I mean, so in defense of them, the Taken King was an enormous expansion.
It's awesome.
I don't play nearly as much as most people, but I still have a ton of quests to do, and I'm only running on character. I was talking to one of the newer members of our clan yesterday, and they were like, I don't understand how people can play on more than one character. It's just It's an immense amount of content. That being said, I don't know. I don't know. I've seen a lot of mixed messages and mixed responses to it. And,
So
I haven't
they
had a chance to
basically-
race yet, so I don't know how much fun that is.
All they said was that there's not going to be another Dark Below or House of Wolves style DLC until Destiny 2 at the very least.
Right. It's
Which
just going to
means-
be more of these miniature events.
Trickle
And that
feeding
doesn't
us
necessarily
content.
mean no new raid, and that doesn't necessarily mean no new mission pack. It just means that they would probably be separate, right? It would just be a raid.
You also
We shall
forget,
see.
Well, but you also are forgetting they can add quests. A
Yeah, I
quest.
think that's more
They can do quests which are not technically a giant expansion, but they could. I mean, they can expand a lot on these maps. So I mean, I don't know. I see both sides. I see a lot of people's apprehensions.
I do think, honestly, that at the very least, they are going to give us something at the very end of, this year to however much longer the Taken King's supposed to last. I think when they're ready to end it, they're going to have some kind of big event, like maybe a raid. Maybe they're actually working on something new. They're showing us now that they can expand game modes with this Sparrow Racing League, which it will be fun to ram you gentlemen in the walls and Vex tomorrow.
Well,
Looking
but I
forward
mean,
after
also,
the gift of gaming.
right, and also remember that. I mean, Guardian Radio touched on this too. They look at the number of people who have actually completed the raid. I mean, it's like maybe 8% of people have completed the King's Fall raid. That's not hard mode. That's normal. Like, I mean, so understand a lot of us, have a skewed view on. We burn through content a little bit faster than the general population, and that's weird for me to say because I don't feel like I'm running through it that fast. Like, I still have a ton of stuff to do, and looking back, I'm like, well, yeah, I've completed all this, and they're like, well, that means you're in the 6 or 8% of people who have completed this. So, and also, I mean, realize that people are still out there who don't have a clan, which is part of the reason why we all love the clan that we're in. Obviously, but a lot of people don't even have that, and a lot of people don't want that. There's a lot of people out there who still have that mentality of I want to play this game by myself. I don't need a clan, or I will just use LFG for those random things that require more. And of course that's going to take them longer because they don't have a set group that know how to play with them. So that being said, I mean, from a business model, the demand is not that high. For us, the demand is very high because we're running with a group that consistently in the group that we run with in the ecosystem that we exist. It's a very high percentage of people who have already completed all the stuff. But looking at the entire ecosystem, that's a very low
I have a hard time even believing that low number, though. When was the last time you've been to the actual Destiny forums?
I don't use the Destiny forums.
That's toxic, bro.
Exactly. You go
Nobody
there,
uses the
and
Destiny
there is still
forums.
salt and tears everywhere.
Oh my
Well,
god.
but, okay,
Yeah,
well, first off, let's just air out that's kind of the first rule of the internet is you don't read the comments because that's all it's going to be.
Do I need to get my lawn chair?
Oh my god, it's going to be good. No, I mean, I just was saying it. If that statistic is accurate, and you can argue that it's not. You can all that, but if that statistic is
It
is
could
accurate,
very well be. I'm
I'm
just
saying I see why they said that. That's all I'm saying. Do I agree with it? I'm still on the fence. Festival of Lost was kind of, no pun intended, lost on me because I was like, I don't care.
Yeah.
So
I mean, like,
I
it was
think that
cool,
the important thing to realize about this before we get back on topic is that we don't know anything. We just know that we're not getting big, huge DLCs with tons of stuff. What I assume that means is that we'll get the same amount of content because they have to keep interest, right? They can't just like, okay, you got King's Fall and some crappy seasonal events and we'll see you in a year. Like, there will be at least one new raid, if not two. There will be some new dungeons. There will be some new stuff. It's just going to be eked out so that they don't have, like, huge, huge content drops as often, because those are probably unsustainable because they're only a cash infusion every 4, 5, 6 months.
Right, and that's why, again, I think that was the genius behind the adding of the quest system.
Yeah.
Is because then they can add those mini, whatever you want to call them, mini dungeons or mini strikes, or it's strikes. We can add strikes left and right now. We could have added before, but now we can actually do that and still build story, which obviously means good stuff for us. But it's just I agree. I don't think it means that we're not getting content. I think it just is a distribution plan of change. A change. God, man, I cannot talk. The change of distribution planning, I think, is what it is. Instead of giant chunks of, meat every 4 months, we're getting little snippets every.
And like when the raid comes out, it'll probably launch with an event that will have some Everest thing going on, so that people are buying stuff. Because I'm betting they're making way more money off of emotes and that kind of crap than they are off of.
But I don't even want to think about it, dude. $7 for the damn jump on it emote. And the bad thing is, I really want that emote. Like,
which one
if it's still around and I get the Bing rewards up for it, I will probably get it. But I am not gonna.
Oh yeah, that's right. They have new emotes, don't they?
I'm not doing that either.
But dude, Bing rewards and Xbox rewards all day, every day.
I mean, I'm like $1,500 into League of Legends, so I can't even talk. Like, I'll just throw money at them left and right. I don't even play League of Legends, and I still buy skins because I believe in the company so hard.
Yeah, and I mean, one last comment about microtransactions. Look at Halo. I mean, they doubled the HCS. Yeah. They doubled it. It's now $2 million. It started off. I don't even know if it would. I think it actually more than doubled in pens. I don't know if.
And that's crazy to me because I'm one of those guys. Once again. I'll sell the Rex that I don't need for the credits.
Right.
And I'll build up the credits, and then I'll buy the gold pack with the credits that I earn, not my money.
Right. But you also recognize that you're not the average gamer. You have this thing called
I guess not. I guess being a dad, you're not average anymore.
Well, that's
old and
also
stingy.
True. We have a different perspective because
I don't even do Rex. It says level 3 Rex available. I say, F you. I'm just going to run. I'm going to run and keep going. I'm not going to kiosk in game and get some money out of the bank.
Oh, yeah. I haven't even
played. Well, you don't get some money. If you go to the kiosk in game, you just pop out a machine. Like, you just jump into a scorpion and you shoot people in the face.
Yeah, I'm just...
But
that seemed very not intuitive to me, that whole system, but that's another conversation.
Yeah, anyway, so back to the Fallen.
Well, I think they've...
I mean, got any last words?
I think that's it.
Damo, got any last words on the Fallen before we run through some quick, just final comments? I guess we are doing final comments.
I think that they're probably the most interesting of the races in Destiny because I think they have the highest variability, right? As opposed to like the Hive, which are like the quintessential one track, and the Vex, which are the quintessential unknowable, and the Cabal, which are just, I mean, basically war incarnate.
Space rhinos.
The Fallen / Eliksni have a lot going on and a lot of potential.
They're definitely the most human.
They have the most depth, right? Like they have the most of the area to explore. The way the story's set up.
That is very, and you know what's scary is looking at how much depth the Vex have. To think about the Eliksni as having more.
Yeah, it's really a different kind of depth, because the Vex purpose-wise do not have a lot of depth. In fact, they don't even have a purpose anymore, hypothetically.
That's true.
Yeah, they do. They're looking for a reality in which they survive in.
They're looking for a reality in which their ultimate doom doesn't come to pass, and we did that for them, so...
Right, we kind of screwed that one up for them. Sorry.
No, we mangled them.
You saved your butt.
Those specific Vex. Yeah, we could keep going, but I'll go ahead.
we're gonna. That's next week. That's next week.
Yeah, that's next week. Actually,
next week by saying that it's very clear that we have averted their ultimate doom. Like that is made very clear in the Paradox mission.
Basically, we did their job.
I don't know that it is though. We prevented that specific ultimate doom.
Well,
we made sure Oryx wasn't taking anything anymore.
Well, they're pretty clear that the ultimate doom is what set them on this path, and they may have gone too insane to walk away from this path now. But
Oh, because if that was the case, they wouldn't have let us in. They are the one. Well, we're going to get into that next week. We're not getting into that right now. But
Where are we?
I think that
Little
paradox.
did you know.
We will sure as hell talk about that next week.
Oh my goodness.
What does that have to do with the Vault of Glass?
Yeah.
Everything.
Right, I know.
The fact that they showed that they don't have to attack us. That's not their. They let us in as long as you don't shoot them first.
Attack is
No,
not the problem.
I shot them and they still let you
Oh
in.
my god.
Well,
Justin.
they've
who
shot at
rides
me a
along.
couple times when I've shot them. But
Yeah.
they are pretty much
Unsurprisingly.
asking for your help. They are the ones.
Unsurprisingly, Adamo did
Why
not
do you
shoot.
think we never got a message from Praedyth at all? They're all year one. How long is this supposed to have been within the game that all this time we didn't hear from Praedyth? Then all of a sudden, when the Taken are a threat, now we hear from Praedyth. They let him come through to our time and our reality. So that was pretty much their way of asking us for help.
Yeah.
And
I don't think
they
we can
show
speak
that
English.
by being docile, except for the ones that are malfunctioning and just shooting in random places because they don't have a head anymore.
And burning. Yeah.
So-
it's not.
And so
You want to do
You got me on a rant about
let's
the vault.
run before
That's
Willy
next
gets his
week.
breath back. All right, so yep, that so obviously that was the Eliksni conversation, and some teaser. We'll just pretend like we were going to do that on purpose. Some teaser of the next week's argument.
If you
that's
say
gonna
that, it
happen.
ruins the whole thing.
I know, but I don't know what else to say. So
You made
with
it
that-
awkward.
shh, don't make it awkward. With that being said, Damo, do you want to give people a way to get in touch with you? I know you have a Twitter.
Yeah, it's at Damoel, Damoel, which it's mostly a responsive Twitter, so don't expect the most voluminous of tweets. But if you talk to me on there, I'll respond.
It's true.
And if you're in the band, obviously you can participate in the daily Damo Against the World conversations.
I love it.
And Justin, well, do you have any shout outs you want to give us?
Mostly the people in this room. So
Fair enough.
Whoop, whoop.
So by the people in this room, you mean your cats, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
I want to give a shout out to Tara, who's currently shredding my leg like a piece of paper. And Sophrenia, who appears to have covered herself in a thin sheen of drool.
Nice.
And Jade, who's screaming for food, even though her bowl's full because there's a tiny hole in the middle.
These are all cats, right?
Yeah.
I'm just
Cats are children, I mean,
I'm just wondering.
the difference is minor.
Oh, okay. Okay. The state would differ on that key point, but
Yeah.
let's
Actually,
keep moving.
I'd probably take better care of my cats than some children, so not fair.
So-
Anyway, no, I meant the guys in this that helped make Lord Chad a blast.
That's what
Yeah.
I'm talking about.
And then just so real quick, just thanks to Damo,
Damn.
for being our first guest and being civil to Willy, not bludgeoning each other over the head. We've seen countless examples of. And then obviously
It'll happen. It'll happen.
it'll happen in text. We'll have a makeup fight tomorrow. But and then the Focused Fire chat is where we get a lot of this information from. I know there's a lot of people who listen who aren't able to keep up with that chat because it can get pretty insane pretty fast. And so just, appreciate you guys taking your time to listen to us or to participate in that chat. We are on Twitter. It's just at Focused Fire Chat. And I generally try to put out a link to the band if you aren't already in that and you hear about us. That's the best way to get a hold of us. We also I just kicked together a Gmail account. So if you have any feedback from that, give us that. It's focusedfirechat@gmail.com. Love to hear feedback, how we can get better, how to not bungle an introduction because of screaming 2-year-olds. It happens. So that being said, I'll pass this off to Justin.
All right. So I would like to give a big shout out to the live chat, everyone who made it out. I do this every time. Blank, Pins. Who else was out tonight?
Josh.
Yeah, Josh was back. I was worried about you, Josh.
And it looks like Beard is in there too.
Oh, okay. What's up? And I would like to give a shout out to my clan, DOD Shadow White Crew. And then a preemptive shout out to all of the Gift of Gaming streamers who will be streaming starting tomorrow evening. Yours truly included. Focus Fire will be streaming starting. What is it, Blue? What time are we starting? 10 p.m. Central?
Yes, we are going to be streaming tomorrow at 10 p.m. to 11 p.m. Central. And then also we will be on Saturday morning at 1 a.m. Central all the way to 4 a.m. Central. And it sounds like Damoel might actually be there. And actually, I think we have a full team for tomorrow. I'm working to see about getting a couple people who are really fun. We really like having them on. I'm not going to say names because I don't want to put any pressure on them, but we're trying to get them in there.
Let's put some pressure. So
pressure's how you peer pressure. That's how you get things done, dude.
Yeah. So if you're
don't remember high school, all the cool kids are doing it.
And you've been away from the train tracks, the hype train's rolling on that, and they've got their own Twitter, which is at Gift of Gaming. And check it out. 2 really good charities it's going to benefit. Lots of good streamers, Triple Rec, and Fife, Guardian Radio, and so on and so forth. So definitely check that out. And I'll hand it off to Willy.
I'm also going to mention the one thing for anybody listening that doesn't know, which I'm pretty sure everybody does, but tons of prizes going to be there as well. I'm going to go ahead and shout more about the Gift of Gaming a little bit because, you got special effects in the UK and the Salvation Army, both awesome charities.
And then Toys for
Looking forward to
Tots,
actually
too.
helping out with that. Looking forward to screwing up a little bit and everybody hating me.
It's like
I'll
a
try
Monday.
Yeah, it's just another Monday, So, and big shout out to KP for throwing it all together. I mean,
He's a
that
madman.
guy, yeah, he was running around like a chicken with his head cut off to make sure that whole thing, and it's not only KP, but Thorn, Kai, the community managers other than Blue.
Yeah.
Well, Blue did good too. You did good.
Smurda, I don't understand.
No,
how
Blue's
Smurda's
definitely
not,
done his part. Blue's done his part as well. But yeah, everything looks like it's coming together real well. Got a lot of pretty cool people that are going to be attending that for 96 hours. I'll be in there as much as possible as well.
Yep. So, and we actually did. This is there's no evil way to really. Yeah, I know, Josh. It's like listening to a typewriter on steroids. We actually
typewriter on steroids.
We went ahead and threw together a small crowdfund just simply because I'm expecting anybody to do anything, but because the Podbean does cost a little bit. It's not a substantial amount, but it is something that does cost us something. So anything that we can get, it helps. Not expected, not at all required. Everything that we do is free. We have a couple of big things that we are working on that we're not allowed to talk about, but we are I want to really talk about. But I know, God, it's going to be so awesome. But hopefully we'll be able to talk about that here in the next couple of weeks. But other than that, we'll see all you guys in the lore chat tomorrow. And yep, there you go. Josh supports the United Dregs Work Union. So
Yep.
that being said, Dreg Workers. Sorry, good correction, Josh. So that being said, we'll see you guys later. And if we don't see you in chat, we will see you next week on Wednesday. Hopefully, if that changes, I will tweet it out and probably spam the crap out of the chat.
Well, we'll see you tomorrow.
We'll see you tomorrow. You guys have a good night.